Hello, my name's Olurotimi Osha. Today is June the 17th, 2026, and it's been 2 days past the 811th year anniversary of the Magna Carta, the seminal document of our, you know, um, our constitutional democracy, and which importantly established the foundation of the rule of law, that nobody is above the law, not the king and not his government. Everybody is equal before the law. And it also uh, establishes principles of the impartiality of the courts, and habeas corpus, among other things. um, However, I've been doing videos talking about the false flag operation that I suffered, uh, which was orchestrated by rogue senior executives of the Department of Defense, including Kirsten Risbeck, among others, in order to obstruct justice in an EEOC complaint and Office of Inspector General complaint I'd filed, among other things, and Office of Special Counsel complaint I'd filed, among other things. Um, so it's my right to petition the government, right? That's in our First Amendment, right? That's a First Amendment right to petition the government for a redress of our grievances. And under the whistleblower protection laws, whistleblower laws, when we observe misconduct in federal employees, federal officials, we're supposed to report it. There's proper channels. And I've done all these things. However, um, uh, on May the 16th, 2023, um, a false flag operation was executed. The pretext was there was an emergency evaluation petition filed by my my emergency contact, Howard University professor Jide Iwarere, who, of course, perjured an emergency evaluation petition, which I was unaware of. It was an ex parte order. There's several ex parte orders that were submitted through Montgomery County courts. Importantly, these were instigated by uh, attorneys for the Department of Defense, who violated the principles of rule of law, and of course they violated the code of ethics for lawyers as well. Um, Specifically, the attorney that in question was leading this case on behalf of the Department of Defense was Supraja Murali. Supraja Murali, interestingly, graduated from George Washington University, like I did. Um, Not, I wouldn't say she has the ethics or the scruples that I do, right? So she gave a deposition. I gave a deposition. I took an oath, and she had requested a deposition. So Supraja Murali was representing the Department of Defense in my EEOC complaint. Previous attorneys, senior attorneys, had attempted to have us resolve my complaint through mediation. However, I requested a letter of apology because the attorneys knew that senior executives, including Kirsten Risbeck, had made false accusations, right? And they had also endangered my life, and they had also committed perjury. It was obvious. It was, the evidence in the court documents were obvious. And Jamie A. Simon, by the way, had committed perjury as well. However, as time progressed, um, the senior attorneys withdrew their appearance, right? Because they understood what Supreme Murali, who now appeared, um, much later on, in the proceedings, they understood that she was attempting to commit fraud upon the court. She was going to fabricate court documents. And that was exactly what happened, right? I gave my deposition in February 2023. It was just, so before you give a deposition, you take an oath that the testimony that you're going to give is true. Now, there was a court stenographer. For some reason, I think they got her from Colorado. However, she did something bizarre. She would alter the documents, right? She would alter the records, right? Corrupt court records by putting words into my mouth which I never said. She attributed to me uh, a statement which I never said. Apart from the fact that a lot of the transcript was garbled, right? When I received the transcript, right, my attorney, because I hired a national employment law firm, Tully Renke, and at that time I'd paid roughly $15,000 out of pocket, right? You can imagine I was a federal employee, right, making meager wages as a federal employee, but as an American citizen and as someone who believes in the integrity of our system, I was challenging uh, the violations, right? The violations that had occurred in the Department of Defense, the fraud that I'd been subjected to, the discrimination that I'd been subjected to. I was going through the proper channels. I reported the matter as I was implored. I was advised by somebody who insisted that she remain anonymous, somebody who was a veteran in the Department of Defense and who told me what was really going on. And they asked me to report the matter to Michael Donnelly, who at the time was the director of Pentagon administration. Right, he at some point been Secretary of the Air Force, a long time ago. But this time, he was director of the Pentagon administration. Right, so in any event, he said he didn't want to insert himself because I'd properly filed I'd probably filed a complaint, and uh, I should let the proceedings just move on, take its due course. So I would give a deposition which was requested by Supraja Murali on behalf of the Department of Defense, and other attorneys, withdrew their appearance. Uh, Around, it took several months after the deposition I gave in February. Now, my attorney had also insisted. My attorney appeared. It was a 7-hour deposition. My attorney had also insisted that my attorney had also insisted that we receive a copy of the video, um, because it was video recorded. However, we never got a copy. Supraja Murali ignored my attorney, right? Request for the transcript. And eventually, when we got the transcript, I went over it and I saw that, it was it was a doctored transcript, right? It was fabricated. There were words I never said. And I told my attorney, typically, they're supposed to provide us an errata sheet, right, to correct the version so that, because that's when you give a deposition, because it's a court stenographer, right? It's a court recorder who's recording and she might make errors. And so the process is to provide an errata sheet with the transcript so you can make your corrections. The Supraja Murali, the attorney for the Department of Defense, never gave us an errata sheet, never gave us the opportunity to correct the record. So my attorney, was recorded, also requested the video recording. Supraja Murali unethically, unprofessionally ignored my attorney, never provided that video recording because she knew what had been staged, what had been planned uh, with senior executives, right? Uh, and other law enforcement. The objective was to stage a swatting, right? To remove me and institutionalize me. So they fabricated a comment, a statement. One of the statements that was inserted, right, that was fabricated in the deposition in the transcript was, it said that I said I was director of the ATF, that's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. That's clearly a delusional statement, right? The Bureau of ATF is part of the DOJ, right? And it's a law enforcement agency. That's clearly a delusional statement. Of clearly, I didn't say that, right? At no point did I ever say that. So I saw it, and I was like, "Hey, this is crazy. This is a statement that I never made." They didn't give us the video to demonstrate that this was a fabrication. So in any event, my attorney now provided an errata sheet and asked me to correct the transcript, myself, and we'd give it back to them. So I started going through the errata sheet line by line. I was correcting everything by myself, painstakingly, right? Painstakingly. But you never believe what happened. Of course, I was interrupted because on May 16, 2023, I was sorted. Prior to that, Jide Wari had been calling me, trying to pressure me to withdraw my complaint, saying, "Hey, look, you work for them, the Department of the Navy. These guys," his words were, "they play hardball." And I was wondering, I asked him, "Hey, has anybody pressured you? Is any because that would be witness tampering. It's illegal, right?" So in any event, I just laughed it off, right? That no, I'm continuing with my complaint. I'm doing something lawful, right? So in any event, I was swatted on May 16, 2023. I was besieged, raided, assaulted, and then dumped in a hospital. From the onset, from the beginning of the deposition, from the get-go, Supraja Murali telegraphed her intention because at some point she started to make weird faces, crazy faces. I had to caution her that, hey, why are you doing that? And she apologized embarrassingly, or she feigned embarrassment. And that's on the court transcript, at least that was recorded. So why and this was material, right? This was the fabrication, right? Making that fabricated statement, that false statement that, well, I was director of the ATF, right? It was a material misrepresentation, right? Because um, one of the ways that a party, right, an attorney can have a case dismissed in the EEOC is to say, well, the complainant who filed the complaint is delusional, right? They're delusional. They're not they're mentally ill. They're clearly delusional. That's a way to get the case dismissed. Now, she didn't make that, uh, at least she didn't, not to my knowledge, she didn't make that uh, representation. But again, the false evidence that she presented to the courts, to the EEOC administrative judge, Mauricia Woodham, you know, was speaking for itself. So in any event, when I was locked up, then she got to present that false transcript, which my attorney had cautioned them that this was for their errors on it. We're correcting it. So while we were correcting, of course, I didn't get to submit that corrected transcript. But when I came out, by the way, I informed the judge. I informed the FBI, right? Of course, because it is attorney misconduct, right? It's attorney misconduct, and it's something called fraud upon the courts when the attorney intentionally corrupts uh, the court records, in order to clearly obstruct justice. And of course, it's subordination of perjury as well. So those are things that Supraja Murali did. She suborned perjury. If it was something that was intentional, that they got the stenographer to intentionally falsify the records, right? Make misrepresentations, make statements that I never made. At no point did I make such statements. And she never cooperated when my attorney brought it to her attention that, look, there are errors on the transcript. She refused to give us the video, right, of the deposition. And when we made a good faith, we were proactive and My attorney gave me an errata sheet, and I was, making the corrections myself. Of course, I was impeded in completing the and in submitting. Actually, I'd completed the corrections. I was wrongfully arrested, right? Wrongfully arrested based on this fabricated emergency evaluation petition. So, Supraja Murali is a gangster that represents the Department of Defense. She's not an attorney, and you can see the corrupt, illegal things that she did. Of course, I reported it to the FBI, like I said, and it's unfortunate that her actions, you know, they were clearly, intentional, right? Her actions were intentional, and uh, she violated legal ethics, the legal code of attorney ethics, right? Because attorneys are officers of the court through subornation of perjury, right? She suborned perjury by having the stenographer falsify, doctor the records, right? She doctored the stenographer doctored the records intentionally, right? And so the Supraja Murali knowingly submitted a fabricated document, that was material to court, in the court records, in the administrative court records, and that's fraud upon the court, right? So it's unfortunate that the Department of Defense hires attorneys that instead of cautioning the the leaders of the Pentagon to follow the law, it helps them break the law, right? And that is actually attorney misconduct, right? Legal services are not supposed to be used to advance crime. And Supraja Murali clearly committed a crime by through her fraud upon the courts. And I haven't even talked about her role in the orchestration of the swatting, because I was swatted, I was injured. These are permanent scars that that I received. It was an elaborate hoax. It was an elaborate hoax. On that day, the Navy orchestrated something, making it seem like they're taking me through a Navy general officer professions training program to join, you know, the military side, to join intelligence. They went through this elaborate hoax, everything, all these things were orchestrated. It was at the same time that Jide came with a neighbor who filed a false peace order, a perjured peace order saying, I called myself law enforcement, right? And, see the bizarre coincidence, right? Supraja Murali, the Department of Defense attorney, had submitted a fabricated, a doctored uh, transcript, deposition, right? That was sworn to, attested to, prior to the deposition, that in which I ostensibly claimed to be the head of a law enforcement agency, claiming I was director of ATF. That's false. At no time did I say that, right? So that's clearly a delusional statement, right? And you can see why the Montgomery County Court, the Circuit Administrative Judge James Bonifant, who was also committing fraud upon the court by misrepresenting without any evidence, right? By misrepresenting and saying, well, that I'm delusional, right? That was what he was saying, because they wanted to have an evaluation. Eventually, of course, the psychiatrist, said no, that I'm not delusional. I don't have any mental illness. But you can see, interestingly, one of the hospitals that they took me to was MedStar Hospital, where Supraja Murali's parent is a physician, at least was a physician, right? How did they choose this? So I was kidnapped under color of law. My family had no idea where I was for weeks, not my friends, not the person I was in a relationship with. Nobody knew where I was. In any event, I will end this video here, and I will talk more. I think I want to talk about the investigative the investigative techniques of Dr. Martin Brandis, the psychiatrist who figured out that there had been foul play and I was a victim of a hoax, of a swatting. And of course, he told the judge that no, this man has no mental illness. There's no evidence he's ever suffered a mental illness. And anyway, I will keep you posted. Thank you.